Welcome to online e-learnings. Today we are going to discuss the topic called what is mean by database.
What do you mean by database? I could say a database is nothing but a container of a data. It's a container of a data. So just now we understand that a data is nothing but it could be raw figures, pictures, numbers, values, all these things. When you store it in a somewhere, a particular storage location, a storage place, itself we can call it as a database. And when it comes to how many types of database we have and how the database word come up into the market and who introduced this database vocabulary, a database word. So these are all we are going to discuss now. So the term database is usually referred as a container of data and where you can access and manage easily. The first database, usually I am talking about 1950 to 1960 time, the database was completely introduced by one person called Pre-Requisites2. He is the person who introduced to the whole world that is called database. And when he's in the time of 1960, when he introduced the database vocabulary to the whole world, on the time the database was completely in a file-based format. So Codel is the person, founder of a database world, and the first database format was completely file format. So then that time the database also called or referred as the file-based format database also called referred as network database as well pointer database. When you talk about so when I talked about the history of data warehouse in the beginning of first class, I also referred many times saying that the concept around 1950-60 there was no computer but still there was a business, and later on was to overcome this manual entry we come up with the talk about wonderful software which are entered in the market. I was discussing about the mainframe technology in my first class, so I hope you guys remember the mainframe technology is the first software which is entered in the market to do the data processing. And when mainframe was entered in the market, when it was doing the data processing, mainframe was using the backend as a flat file kind of database, and the database itself we call it as IMS database. So one of the best example for flat file database is IMS and IDB. These are the two popular databases which were used for mainframe technology when mainframe entered in the market. So when you talk about flat file database, there are many databases entered in the market which are very popular and get succeed and sustain in the market. Coming to the point, in the current trend and the latest trend, now if you talk about really do we have this flat file kind of database in the market? Yes, there are still some database exist. Now out of that, the very popular one is called DBase. DBase is the one of the popular database still exists to store the data in a flat file kind of database. And the person who introduced the database word into the market, that person Pre-Requisites2, on his name also we have a database in the olden time. I'm not sure whether this Pre-Requisites2 database still is available in the market. The another type of database we called ours a tabular database. This tabular database introduced by the person called EF Code. In the 1970, he has introduced a wonderful concept called tabular database. So database means the database means it should be a collection of tables, and table is nothing but is a collection of rows and columns. The vocabulary, the standard rules, the definition of the database itself is defined by the person called EF Code. EF Code is a former employee of IBM, and when he was working on mainframe technology, and that time mainframe was using the backend database called IMS and IDB and IDS standard databases. On that time, he has proposed to the IBM saying that why can't we go for a next generation of database, rather than keeping our database, our data into the flat file, why can't we go for a tabular database so that we can enhance or improve the performance of the application? But unfortunately, the IBM people are not here to him and finally ignored that guy. And at the same time, there are many companies in the world also attracted for the EF Code rules and the EF Code concepts and methodology. And finally, one of the popular database entered in the market by taking as a base of EF code rules. That is, the database is called Oracle. So Oracle is the first database which is entered in the market by taking as a base EF code rules or norms or methodologies, I could say. So if you talk about what are the type of databases are there available in the market, there are a lot of databases available in the market. If you talk about the very popular database, I could say just now I mentioned, one is called Oracle, another one is called SQL Server, another one is called Teradata, another one is called MySQL. So out of these databases, there are many databases can be even you can download from the internet and you can start working on it without paying a single penny. So that is called free of cost. Also you can download any database in the world. To talk about those databases, we call them open source database. And there are two popular open source databases are available in the market. There are a lot of open source databases are there. Out of them, there are only few which are got very popular. That is called MySQL and PostgreSQL. So there is one more database also called Firebird and Ingres. Ingres are one of the I could say legacy database system, and it was completely old database system, and still this is the database exists and it can be downloaded from the internet and you can start using for your organization, not only for personal, you can also use for your company business also. But whatever you talk about, all those open source databases are used or support for only for development and quality. Not I could say even still it is having a limitation for quality. I could say MySQL database can support for only development quality, not for the production. So that is the limitation of any open source database which are available in the whole world. Now coming to the point of SAP. SAP also having a lot of databases. Out of them the very popular one database we call SAP Max database. Earlier Max database was referred as SAP DB. When SAP was tied up for a small contract project with a MySQL company and they changed the database SAP DB to Max database, and then later on the contract was failed with the MySQL, but still the name was exist as a Max database. So other than Max database, SAP also has some other database that those are all we call them Sybase IQ, Sybase ASC. So this Sybase ASC and Sybase IQ are completely not exactly owned by SAP. SAP acquired the Sybase company, acquired the Sybase database, and of course now it's a proprietor of Sybase. That's the reason SAP having more database, more than 3 types of databases they have owner of now. So other than you talk about SAP Max database, SAP Sybase IQ, SAP Sybase IC, even SAP also have one more very popular database called SAP HANA. So obviously we are going to discuss about SAP HANA within a subsequent classes or maybe within subsequent slides. So before going to that SAP HANA database topics, so I would like to cover some more concept that is called DBMS. So what do you mean by DBMS? DBMS stands for nothing but database management software system. So it's nothing but a software which can manage your database itself called DBMS. So it means Oracle is a database, SQL Server is a database, Teradata is a database, DB2 is a database, MS Access is a database. Every database, everything I can call is a database. But when you talk about when you want to deploy the database in your company, in your organization, for your business, we should need some software, some executive file. So that software itself we call them DBMS. So I could say DBMS and database can be used interchangeably. Depend upon the situation, I could say DBMS or I could say database. So DBMS is nothing but database management software system. Then what do you mean by DBMS? So I could say EF code, when he has defined what do you mean by tabular database, what exactly the meaning, and at the same time he also defined around 12 rules. When he says that when the database satisfies these 12 rules, then only I can call it as a database. So when he has defined a popular normal tabular database in the market, so he has given a wonderful definition for RDBMS. That is nothing but if the DBMS having tables with a relation, then only I can call it as a RDBMS. So I would say RDBMS is nothing but a database, a DBMS, database or DBMS, which has the data in the form of, rather than table, I could say in the form of related tables. So the tables which has some relation, then we call them as related tables. So that time, that database itself we call them RDBMS. In any database, whenever you want to define the relationship between two tables, the relationship can be made between the tables. Relationship can be made between the tables only by primary key and foreign key relationship. Foreign key by primary key and foreign key constraints. I could say these are all rules. Constraints are nothing but rules and regulations. So what we say, relationship can be made between the tables only by primary key and foreign key constraints, nothing but rules. So right now we understand that there is a data, and data can be called as even information and also called knowledge. So when you refine the data, when you process the data itself, we call information. When you further process, it's called knowledge. And the database is nothing but is a container of the data. And when you want to install that software, if you want to manage the database, then we should have some software. That software itself we call them as a DBMS, database management software system. So now we also talked about RDBMS. RDBMS is nothing but the DBMS, the database, the software which has the data in the relation in the form of related tables, and we can call it as RDBMS. And the relationship can be made between the tables only by the concept called primary key and foreign key. So now